today. Amazing. It's continuing what we mentioned yesterday, which is the great secrets of the trees. The secrets of the trees that we're going to have in our shuls, we're going to put in our houses over Shavuos. I want to discuss a much more profound concept that we mentioned, that Shavuos is the Rosh Hashanah of the fruits. So we know fruits come from trees. They don't grow on in the Costco tree. They grow actually from trees. And we need to understand that journey. So we're going now deeper into the story. We mentioned some of the simple meaning last time, but now we're going a little bit deeper in. And it goes the following. Our souls are called fruits. Okay, our souls are called fruits. And therefore, if you appreciate that, by extension, it means that our souls come from trees. Our souls are being birthed, so to speak, from a tree. And let's go further into that idea. Okay? We think that, trees are something in this world, but then that's it. The trees that you see in this world are an analogy. They're trying to teach you about the supernal tree. They're trying to teach you about a spiritual concept called a tree. And we throw things around like the tree of life. We know of these ideas, but that's the real tree. Shalom, Josh. That's the real tree. That is the real tree. The trees that we see down here are an analogy of that tree. I'll give you an example a little bit, and we'll speak about this more at length. Mitzvah Hashem, is that the Torah says in many places that God took us out of Egypt with an outstretched arm, Yad Chazaka, Zroi Netuya, a strong hand and an outstretched arm. But we know that the Rambam teaches us that it is absolutely forbidden to think that God has any physical parts. Absolutely forbidden. It's one of the most fundamental beliefs as a Jew, and it's one of our responsibilities to share this with humanity, that God is not a man in the sky. That is totally forbidden. We're into hardcore monotheism. No parts. We mentioned this earlier today in our Derech Hashem, that 0 parts, no composite. What was the word we used, the fancy word?
Modularity.
Modularity. No modularity. Forbidden. Simple unity. Oneness. So how does the Torah say that God has a hand? That God has other features, a mouth, a beard. So the answer is like this. When you think of God's hand, you look at your hand, you're like, yeah, it's like this, like God size. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a hand, but like God, whoa, mega hand. Arm, like I'm into gains, but like God, like unbelievable. And that's where the old anthropomorphizing of God, Hashem Yirachem, was that. It was just like big, humongous, Thor, all these types of, lowercase g, idol worship, is just like God, like long, like hair, big beard, like perfect. So, because you keep using your finite reference point to talk about God, when we say that God is a hand, we're referring to a spiritual concept. We're referring to interface. Your hand interfaces with somebody. When you shake their hand, there's an interface, there's a communication. Hand also refers to the way that you give. When you give somebody something, you give it with your hand. You give tzedakah, you're handing it to somebody. The hand is here to help. The hand is here to guide. When we talk about God's hand, we're referring to Him interfacing with us. Relating, communicating. God's eyes. God's eyes. When we talk about God's eyes, don't think of these giant eyeballs. We're referring to that God is aware. Now, use your eyeballs to teach you about God's eyes, i.e. that He's aware, but there's no eyeballs up in the sky. Okay? It's all an analogy, which really means that God does have eyes, but not like yours. Your eyes are just an analogy of God's eyes. He's got eyes, the real thing, but they're not physical. Yours are like, this is like the play eyeballs. This is just to teach you a little bit about what real eyeballs are like. You think you're the real eyeballs? They're not the real eyeballs. They're the fake ones. They're the analogy eyeballs of God's eyeballs, which are not balls. They're awareness, supervision, consciousness. By the way, if you really take this idea further, your whole life will be transformed. It's a pretty trippy concept. You don't even need any LSD for it. You just contact with Torah consciousness will take you there. Everything in this world is an analogy of the real world. This is the world of analogy. So your eyes are here to teach you about God's eyes. Your hands, well, I interface, I use my hands. I had a hand injury for a couple of years, and it was very emotionally challenging for me. Thank you for letting me have group therapy right now and open up to you. For me to not feel like I could shake people's hands, it was very intense trauma. I felt like I couldn't interface with the world. It was very, very challenging for me. That tuned me into what hands represent. And your whole body is a symbol and an analogy for what's going on in the real world, the spiritual world. Your friends are an analogy for what it means to have connection up there. Your wife. It's the deepest secret analogy of how two human beings can bond so deeply, which is really teaching you the greatest secrets between us and Hashem. Very deep, deep secrets. All this world is an analogy. What's up with your toes? What's up with that? It all has a reason. It all has a reason. There's purpose. So it's here to teach us things. So do trees. Trees teach us things. Okay? The trees that we see are the analogy of the real tree. Okay? So there's a tree that is spiritual, what the concept of a tree is. So we see a tree, it's got some bark, maybe some chaga mushroom growing on the side. That's good stuff, by the way. And it's got some other stuff going on, and it's leaves, and it's great. But let's just think about it for a second. The tree's got roots, which means the source of life. It's drawing life force. And then those roots are creating a trunk. The trunk of the tree is solid. It's the body of the tree. And then the tree itself is pushing out and starting to form branches. And then those branches form more branches, more branches, more branches, more leaves, what leaves mean, and then into fruits. Ultimately pushing all the energy to the fruits. All the energy to the fruits. And if you trim away sick branches, so what will that do? Instead of having energy diverted to a sick branch that's dying, you now preserve that energy that it can be diverted to areas where there'll be more sustainability, put more energy to the fruits. It's a whole, it's very sophisticated understanding how trees work. Let's now take that as an ultimate analogy for the way that God is creating the world. Okay? When we talk about the spheres, which is the way that God creates and runs the universe, it's described as the tree of life, which must be that the entire creation of the world and the running of the world and the continuity of every single breath that we're breathing right now is analogous to the way a tree works. So the Maharal and others speak this out, that the difference is that trees in this world, the roots are on the bottom, then the trunk, then the branches, then the fruits. Whereas up in heaven, it's flipped. The tree is upside down. The roots of the tree are the highest spheres. That's where the energy is coming from, the nutrition is coming from, ultimately Radlah, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light of Hashem. That's where it's drawing life force from the roots. And then that energy is getting funneled down to the body of the tree, which is called Tiferes. That is then coming down, making branches, which is called the sphere of Malchus. And those branches are many, 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 many branches. What comes out of the branches? The fruits. The fruits are our souls. So the whole of creation is a giant conceptual tree, okay? And just like nothing's separate, the tree is one, I think this is a word, contiguous. Is that the correct word? One contiguous entity. There's no break along the way. If it's a break along the way, the tree's not going to continue. You just chop the tree in half. So it's not going to keep going. It's one contiguous experience, one contiguous process of life force coming from the roots through the trunk into the branches, producing the fruits. And therefore, this world, if you were to look up, there's like a mirror above our heads. Meaning, if you really want to know what it looks like upstairs, okay, so look up, watch SpaceX rocket ship fly by, and look up beyond that, and you'll see that just like a mirror shows you the mirror image of it. I mean, if I were to look up right now, what would I see? I wouldn't see the same look that I see here. I would see, Adam's kippah, and then I would see, if I keep looking up, I would see towards your feet. So if I'm standing beside a tree right now, and there's a mirror above us, and I look up, so I'm going to see the fruit, leaves, branches, trunk, roots. Okay, that is what the tree of life looks like. That is the tree of life. So it's like an upside down mirror. It's a pretty cool thing to just think about, is that it's a mirror, which really clues you into the way the spiritual world is organized. Okay? Okay. We have to appreciate that when we say tree in this world, like we mentioned, we're just using analogy for the real tree. Like I mentioned, and this comes up many times in Torah, when we mention Hashem's hand, it's just an analogy for hand. And He's the real hand. Our hands are analogies for hands. Here's another example. It's called Shema Mushal. His heart is like hard as stone. No, when I say that, do I actually mean that the guy's heart has turned into a piece of, marble? No, because that would be bad. Blood doesn't pump through marble. What I'm implying is that I'm borrowing the concept of stone, which means hard, unfeeling, and I'm applying that to something else. But it's only an analogy. I don't mean his heart is stone. So when I say tree, by the way, it's just an analogy. These trees are analogies of the real tree, but they're here to clue you in. Like when you say when the guy's heart is made out of stone, what you're saying is he's got a lot of work to do. He's been repressing his emotions for many years. You're using as an analogy to understand his reality better. So the fact that Hashem gave us all these trees is to clue you in to what trees are. Jews are really into understanding the world because we see the entire world as an opportunity to connect to God. Everything. And trees are like a big one for us, really big. Trees are one of the most important analogies in the whole story. And therefore, pay attention to trees. Trees are good. Trees are very good, Be careful with trees. Trees, I don't mean you could take it too far, what I'm saying? I don't know if I need to elaborate. I'm just saying, I wouldn't marry a tree. You know what I'm saying? Hashem doesn't want you to marry a tree, but you should respect trees tremendously, and you should learn from the trees, and you should realize that they're here to teach us things. And they're teaching us, in our context here, about Shavuos. Now, why is this all exceptionally significant? Because we said that Shavuos is the new year of the fruit of the trees. And if our soul is the fruit, it means that what's really happening on Shavuos, it's the new year of our soul. It's the new year of our soul. It's the new year. How much energy will course into our fruit, into our soul? How healthy will the tree be and bring that energy into our soul? Now you might ask me, but didn't we already have a Rosh Hashanah on the first day of Tishrei? The answer is yes. That was a Rosh Hashanah for our body. Shavuos is a Rosh Hashanah for our soul. How much spiritual energy we're going to be able to feel this entire year. And if you haven't figured out, where do we drink in that spiritual energy? We connect to what's called the Eitz Chaim. What's the Eitz Chaim? Is the Torah. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim ba. The Torah is called the tree. The Torah is the tree. And the Torah's fruits are our soul. So to the degree that I'm holding on, I'm into the tree, then the fruits are going to be pumped up. You know what I'm saying? But as soon as you rip away the fruit from the tree, I don't need you, tree. I'm doing my own thing now. You don't know me. By the way, this is one of the great secrets that Adam ripped the fruit from the tree, is that he was separating. That was at the advice of the Nachash, the advice of the snake. If you guys chap this, it's crazy, because essentially the snake was saying, you don't need the tree. You could be your own thing. Now, everybody knows what happens to a fruit after it's ripped off the tree.
It dies.
It dies. It might look good for a little bit, which is part of the ploy and the deception, that at a certain point it withers. At a certain point it withers. By the way, what's one of the only fruits that basically could stay forever?
Honey.
Carob.
Honey never gets...
That's like a real fruit, is the esrog. That's why the esrog connects you to the higher part of the tree, which is the Eitz Chaim. The esrog is many secrets about the esrog. We'll talk about more. Tu B'Shvat Sukkos. The esrog is like, everybody knows, that's like the thing. We mentioned esrog this morning also. Esrog is the fruit. That's like our thing, the esrog. Okay? Esrog jelly. And therefore, on this day, we want to reconnect the fruit, our soul, to the tree. Because once we do that, the life force could course through. And of course the roots, because the tree is an upside down tree, the roots are in heaven, the roots are referring to very high things. Chochmah, Atzilus, Bina, where the souls are starting to come down from, very lofty things. What do we know of such things? You have to go speak to the real Mikubalim about these things. And then as that energy comes down the system, the body of the tree is Tiferes. And then that's coming into Malchus. That's all the branches, which is also called the Chakal Tapuchen Kadishin, the holy apple orchard, which people know about from Friday night. And they sing songs from the Arizal, the holy apple orchard, which was also with Yaakov Avinu. When Yaakov Avinu came in to get the blessings from Yitzchak, Yitzchak said, Re'eh b'ni, re'ech hasadeh, I smell, re'eh, re'ech b'ni, kasada asher birchu Hashem. Look, interesting, look at the smell. When was the last time that you saw something that smelled beautiful? That my son has the beautiful aroma of like a dewy apple orchard with that rich aroma. And Rashi there points out that it's referring to the Garden of Eden. He came in, even though he was wearing the wet shetif shel izim, wet goat hair. And the Medrash points out, nothing actually smells as bad as that. He was wearing the stinkiest stuff, and it smelled like Gan Eden. Mamish Gan Eden. There's great things to talk about there. But that place, that orchard, is now where the souls are starting to emerge from, where the fruits are coming from. So when is the regeneration of those fruits? That's on Shavuos. That's on Shavuos. And therefore we put the trees everywhere. We're putting trees all over the place. In shul, many people put trees in their house to remember that their soul is the fruit. And this is the day that there is a regeneration. Now, you can't put a tree in your house if the tree is not connected to the Eitz Chaim. It's only a tree that's a tree of life, which is the Torah. The tree has to be a tree of life. That's the Torah. A tree of life will produce good fruits. But a tree that's not a tree of life is called the Eitz Adas Toivara, that it's cut off from the higher place, and that is something that's not going to produce. That's something that's going to produce something bad. Therefore you have to be careful. We're into trees because they teach us the continuity of life force coming from source all the way through. But you could hijack the tree. So we have trees everywhere because for us, the tree is Torah. It's called the tree of life. Eitz Chaim hi, lamachzikim ba. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah is the day that it's the new year of our bodies. And that's why we speak a lot about, what do you speak about in Rosh Hashanah? Literally life. Who will live and who will die? Zachreinu l'chaim melech chavetz b'chaim, chazveinu b'sefer hachaim, lemancha elakim chaim. Hashem, give us life. Give us life. A lot of it, simply put, is for a beating pulse. We should all live until 120 years. Izrat Hashem. But the life that we're asking for to be regenerated on Shavuos is our spiritual life. That's our neshama. That's our soul. And therefore, what are you judged on Shavuos? Because remember, it's a Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah always means there's a din. What we're being judged on in Rosh Hashanah is, are we using our soul for Torah and mitzvahs? Are we using our soul for the spiritual purpose that it was put here to do? And therefore, to the degree that we are, we'll be given more life. The soul will become very, very rich and attuned and sensitive. And therefore, according to how much that we purify ourselves, our souls will be jacked up, using a borrowed term. And this is now why we put all the trees up. So essentially, what are we doing? We're going to be on this day connecting in with the supernal tree, the Eitz Chaim, connecting to where the source of all our life is coming from. We'll mention next time that if it wasn't for Shavuos, if it wasn't for this day of us receiving the Torah, it says the entire world would go back to nothingness. The purpose of creation was that there should be a communication from God to humanity, that there should be a world where we are actualizing and doing the will of God. And the way to connect to that life is through the Torah. And the Torah is like a tree, connecting from the highest place. It's one flow. It's God's energy coming through into the fruit. You can't separate anything. It's not like there's a God up there far, far away, and He gave us this Torah and it's like distant. The Torah is the tree, which means it extends all the way from the roots and allows energy to come all the way down. When you're learning Torah, you're drawing from the source itself. It's primary source stuff. It's like getting water from the source of the spring. and you're getting it right tapped into the source. Coming down, flowing just like a tree. Use the tree as an analogy. Just like the tree, it's one process of drawing up energy, moving it through into the fruits. So too, learning Torah is drawing down energy from the source of life, Hashem, through all the spiritual worlds, that's what the tree really represents, into this world, into our soul. And therefore, the more that we're connected to this process, the more enlivened we will be. And therefore, on this day of Shavuos, you want to make it your business to really commit yourself to Torah, to be into Torah. Because this is the day that, if you're into the tree, so you as the fruit will reap the benefits. It will be fruitful for you. It's just good business I'm trying to give you. Just good advice for your soul. So take advantage, Shavuos. And the best way to get ready for Shavuos is learn Torah. That's the best way. Because it shows Hashem, I'm dedicated. I want your Torah. I want to be connected from the highest place all the way down to this low world, that I could actualize your will in this world. And with that, to bring Hashem's name to the whole world, to bring peace to the whole world, blessing to the whole world, abundance, happiness to all of humanity. We should be zeich to this with Mashiach Tzidkeinu and Binyan Beis HaMikdash and the Kibbutz Galias B'mhera V'yameinu. Amen.
Amen.
Have a wonderful day, my friends. A good